Do you want to be a first-generation entrepreneur or corporate leader, but you don't have a network of family and friends, mentors who have done it before? Well, I didn't, but now I run a multi-million dollar business. So let me tell you how I did it. So I came from a single parent household, grew up in South London, went to a normal state school, and didn't go to a Russell Group University for my undergraduate degree. But I ended up going to one of the best universities for my master's and ended up landing a job at a multi-billion dollar company that's a market leader within my industry. I started off as an associate, where I was doing a lot of the grunt work essentially. Taking minutes, which everybody hates. I was making lots of slides and basically living in Excel. But I decided to immerse myself in my industry and really take the chance to learn every single thing I could at this particular point in my career. I was reading things on the way to work. I was taking on any trainings that I could. I was speaking to people who knew way more than me about the industry that we were in and also the work that my company did as well. I completely immersed myself and I was hungry to learn. 2 years later, I was promoted to a consultant. And this is where I started taking ownership of work streams on bigger projects. Now I was responsible for the outcome of the deliverable, and I was also managing people more junior than me. At this particular point in time, I also decided that I was going to start an employee resource group because I saw that there was a gap that needed to be addressed. And so I took the initiative and set one up. Now this increased my visibility within the organization, and I was engaging people from all over the world and also engaging senior executives. Now, shortly after that, towards the end of the year, I decided to take a big risk and move into a 2-person team with a senior director that I admired. Now, moving into this team was difficult. I was moving from a well-established team that had a clear career pathway, and I knew exactly how I was going to develop and what I was going to be doing over the next several years. But I was getting a bit bored of what I was doing before, and I wanted to do something different. So I took the leap and decided to move into this team with a senior director. Now, this was not easy, and probably at the time was the hardest part of my career. I was managing projects where there was people on the project that were more senior than me, but I was responsible for managing the output of their work. And there was no buffer between me and the senior director, like I would have had in my previous team. But I learned quickly and I adapted fast. And shortly after that, my boss was given a new business to run. And now I was involved in setting the vision, outlining the structure, setting the operations, and also the people management aspects too. And this was really eye-opening. I really started to learn the mechanics of a business at this particular point, and I loved every bit of it. A year later, I was promoted to a senior consultant and also became more officially a chief of staff. Now I was involved in writing proposals, pitching clients, and selling work to our clients. I was also responsible for leading bigger projects. And in terms of my chief of staff role, I was involved in everything from sales to innovation and managing the innovation work that we were doing, as well as supporting my boss with the P&L management of the business unit, as well as getting involved and supporting on business reviews with senior management. I really got a front row seat into how executives actually run businesses at scale, and it was really eye-opening. Now, a year later, I was promoted again to associate director, and I also became an account lead for one of our largest accounts, where I was responsible for driving the sales of that account, but then also ensuring that we were delivering projects on time and to a high standard consistently. In addition to that, I also became the mergers and acquisitions lead for my team. And this meant that I was identifying and evaluating companies that we could acquire. And I was also putting together business cases for these companies and presenting them to senior management. Now, I loved this part of my role. And to be honest, it was probably one of my favorite things that I did at the time. And that meant that I got a really good understanding as to how companies evaluate companies that they want to acquire, how they value them, how they go through a due diligence process, and how we actually integrate a business into the company. Now, a year later, I was actually asked to be the commercial finance lead for one of the companies that we had acquired. Now, I don't have finance qualifications. I didn't do a finance degree, but I will admit that I did have a huge finance function supporting me, right? But I decided to take the role on and I learned every single thing I could from a finance perspective to really ensure that I was executing that role correctly. And shortly after that, I was asked to take over the business as the head. And I also was promoted to a director. Now, this has given me a huge holistic view as to how these businesses are run and how a multi-million-dollar business is run on a day-to-day basis. It's different going from a chief of staff to an executive to now being the one who's making the decisions. But I love every single bit of it. I went from an associate, which is an entry-level position, to leading a multi-million-dollar business in 7 years. So what does this mean for you, an aspiring first-generation entrepreneur or corporate leader? Well, as you can tell, I didn't have the perfect roadmap or the right connections. And you don't need it either. What you do need is a hunger to learn, a willingness to take risks, and the ability to adapt. Now, I'm going to be sharing a lot of lessons and real-world strategies I've learned along my career. So subscribe to First Gen Kev and let's get to work.